They called her aircraft a flying dinosaur. Too slow, too old, too loud for modern warfare. While sleek fighter jets screamed across desert skies at twice the speed of sound, Lieutenant Colonel Tessa Rhodes piloted the lumbering AC-130 gunship through another graveyard shift patrol. But on this particular night, as enemy raiders prepared their most devastating attack yet, Tessa would prove that sometimes the slowest predator in the sky makes the deadliest hunter of all. The desert air carried the smell of jet fuel and burnt metal as Tessa Rhodes watched the F-35s limp back to base. 3 aircraft had left for the night patrol. Only 2 returned, and 1 trailed black smoke from its starboard engine. She stood outside the operations building, coffee growing cold in her hands. The lightning jets touched down with their usual grace, sleek forms cutting through the darkness like silver arrows. Even damaged, they looked fast. Built for speed. "Another rough night," said Captain Martinez, joining her on the tarmac. He nodded toward the smoking F-35. "That's the 3rd bird this week." Tessa watched the ground crews rush toward the damaged aircraft. The pilot climbed out, pulling off his helmet. Even from 50 yards away, she could see his hands shaking. "They're hitting our guys before we even see them coming," Martinez continued. "These enemy pilots know exactly where to strike and when to run." The damaged F-35's pilot walked past them toward debriefing. "Lieutenant Collins, barely 25. Good kid, fast reflexes." But tonight his face looked older. "Ma'am," Collins nodded to Tessa as he passed. "Glad you made it back, son." Collins managed a weak smile. "Yes, ma'am. Though I'm not sure how much longer our luck will hold." After he disappeared into the building, Martinez turned to Tessa. "Command's getting nervous. These night raids are bleeding us dry." Tessa dumped her cold coffee onto the sand. The liquid disappeared instantly into the thirsty ground. "What's the pattern?" "Same every time. They come in fast, hit supply convoys or forward positions, then vanish before we can respond. Our boys can't catch them, and if they do get close, the enemy just kicks in the afterburners and disappears." Through the hangar doors, Tessa could see her own aircraft. The AC-130 sat massive and ungainly compared to the fighters around it. 4 propeller engines instead of jets. A converted cargo plane turned into a flying weapons platform. "Speaking of which," Martinez said, following her gaze, "some of the younger pilots were talking earlier." "Oh? Lieutenant Henderson called your bird a flying tank. Said it belonged in a museum, not a combat zone." Tessa raised an eyebrow. "Henderson's been here what, 3 weeks? About that. And he's never seen the spooky work." Martinez grinned. "That's what I told him." He laughed. "Said speed kills, and your AC-130 tops out at what, 300 knots? On a good day with a tailwind." He asked how you expect to catch anything in that thing. Tessa started walking toward the hangar. Her boots crunched on the sandy concrete. "Henderson ever hunt deer?" "I doubt it. City kid from California. Deer are fast. Real fast when they want to be. But you don't chase deer, Martinez. You wait where they're going to be." Inside the hangar, the AC-130 loomed over them. Its gray bulk stretched 102 feet from nose to tail. The side-mounted 105mm howitzer gave it an aggressive profile, but the 4 turboprop engines made it look more like a cargo hauler than a predator. Staff Sergeant Williams emerged from under the aircraft, wiping grease from his hands. "Evening, Colonel. She's ready to go. All systems green." "Thanks, Williams. How's the new targeting system?" "Sweet as honey, ma'am. We can spot a cigarette lighter from 10 miles up." Tessa ran her hand along the aircraft's hull. The metal was warm from the day's heat. Tomorrow night, it would be cold as ice at 15,000 feet. "Ma'am?" Martinez checked his watch. "Your briefing's in 20 minutes. What's the mission?" "Routine patrol over the Khalid Valley. Intelligence thinks the enemy might try another supply convoy hit." Tessa nodded. The Khalid Valley. A natural corridor between the mountains, perfect for fast-moving aircraft to slip through undetected. The enemy had used it twice in the past week. Routine patrol, she repeated. That's what the orders say. But Tessa had been flying combat missions for 15 years. She knew the difference between routine and opportunity. The enemy liked patterns. They used the same routes, the same tactics, the same timing. Maybe it was time to be waiting where they expected to find empty sky. Martinez, tell Williams to double-check the weapons systems. Ma'am? And have the crew report for briefing 30 minutes early. Martinez looked puzzled but nodded. Yes, ma'am. Tessa headed toward the briefing room, her mind already working through flight plans and patrol routes. Behind her, the AC-130 waited in the shadows of the hangar, patient as a spider in its web. Tonight might not be as routine as headquarters thought. The AC-130's engines coughed to life one by one, each turboprop adding its voice to the growing rumble. Tessa felt the vibration through her seat as she ran through the pre-flight checklist. Outside the cockpit windows, the base disappeared into darkness. Tower, Spooky 27 requesting clearance for departure. Spooky 27, you're cleared for takeoff. Winds light and variable. Tessa pushed the throttles forward. The heavy aircraft rolled down the runway, gaining speed until she pulled back on the yoke. They lifted into the night sky with the steady climb of a freight elevator. Gear up, she called to her co-pilot, Major Barnes. Gear coming up. Behind them in the cargo compartment, her crew settled into their stations. Technical Sergeant Rodriguez hunched over the sensor operator console, adjusting screens and checking connections. The green glow from his displays lit up his concentrated face. Rodriguez, how's our picture tonight? Coming online now, Colonel. His fingers moved across the keyboard. Thermal imaging is good. Night vision is clear. We've got full spectrum coverage. At 8,000 feet, Tessa leveled off and turned toward their patrol area. The AC-130 settled into its cruising rhythm, propellers biting steadily through the cool air. Ma'am, called Staff Sergeant Kim from the gunner's position. All weapons systems are green. The 105 howitzer is loaded and ready. Good. Let's hope we don't need it. Master Sergeant Washington looked up from his navigation station. Colonel, we'll be over the valley in 15 minutes. What's the game plan? Tessa had been thinking about that question since the briefing. Washington, pull up the intelligence reports from the last 3 attacks. Yes, ma'am. Washington's screen filled with data. All 3 hits came through the Khalid Valley. Same approach route, same time window. They like patterns, Rodriguez added. Makes sense for high-speed aircraft. Plan your route, stick to it, get in and out fast. But patterns make you predictable, Kim said. Tessa nodded. That's what I'm counting on. Rodriguez, what can your sensors tell us that the fast movers can't see? Rodriguez grinned. It was his favorite subject. Well, ma'am, those F-35s have great radar, but they're looking forward. We can see 360 degrees. They've got thermal imaging, but we've got better resolution and longer range. How much better? I can read license plates from 10 miles up. Track multiple targets simultaneously. And we've got something they don't have. What's that? Time. Rodriguez leaned back in his chair. They burn through their fuel in 90 minutes. We can stay up here for 6 hours, just watching and waiting. Barnes checked his instruments. Approaching the valley now, Colonel. Through the cockpit windows, Tessa could see the dark slash between the mountains. The valley stretched for 30 miles, a perfect corridor for aircraft moving at high speed. Rodriguez, start your scan pattern. I want to know about every heat signature down there. Copy that. Rodriguez's screens lit up with thermal images. I've got 3 vehicles on the valley floor. Looks like a supply convoy moving north. Perfect bait, Washington muttered. Kim, what's your engagement envelope if we encounter fast movers? Depends on their speed and altitude, Colonel. If they slow down to attack ground targets, I can track them. But if they're moving at Mach 2? Kim shrugged. Might as well throw rocks. Tessa began a slow orbit pattern over the northern end of the valley. The AC-130 banked gently, holding its position like a hawk circling high above a field. This is different, Barnes observed. How so? Usually we patrol over the supply routes. You've got us positioned at the valley entrance. If someone's hunting in your backyard, you don't wait by the chicken coop. You wait by the gate. Rodriguez suddenly straightened at his console. Colonel, I'm picking up radio chatter. Enemy frequency. What are they saying? It's coded, but there's definitely activity. Multiple aircraft coordinating. Washington checked his screen. That supply convoy is right in the middle of the valley now. Perfect target. Range to the convoy? Tessa asked. 12 miles south of our position. Kim adjusted his targeting systems. If anyone comes hunting that convoy, they'll have to fly right past us. The AC-130 continued its patient orbit. 15,000 feet below, the convoy moved through the valley like glowing dots on Rodriguez's thermal display. Contact. Rodriguez called out. Multiple fast movers, bearing 080, range 35 miles. How many? I count 3, no, for aircraft. Formation flying, high speed. Tessa felt her pulse increase. Time the valley entrance? At their current speed, 2 minutes. All stations, stand by. Tessa's voice stayed calm over the intercom. Let's see what they do. The enemy aircraft appeared as bright dots on Rodriguez's screen, streaking toward the valley at incredible speed. The AC-130 continued its slow orbit, invisible in the darkness above. Speed is dropping, Rodriguez reported. They're slowing for their attack run. Kim's hands moved over his fire control panel. Standing by. Easy, Tessa said. Patience wins fights. Below them, the enemy jets descended toward the valley floor, their speed dropping as they prepared to engage the convoy. For the first time in weeks, enemy aircraft were moving slowly enough to track. Tessa smiled in the darkness. Finally, they were playing her game. They're diving, Rodriguez announced, his voice tight with concentration. For aircraft, attacking the convoy from the west. Tessa watched the thermal images on her display. The enemy jets streaked down like falling stars, their heat signatures blazing white against the cold desert floor. Kim, do you have a firing solution? Negative. They're moving too fast for a clean lock. The first explosions lit up the valley floor. Orange fireballs erupted where the supply trucks had been crawling through the darkness. Even from 15,000 feet, Tessa could see the flames spreading. Direct hits, Washington reported. Convoy is taking heavy casualties. The enemy aircraft pulled up from their attack run, climbing back toward cruising altitude. Within seconds, they were accelerating again, their afterburners turning night into day. Speed increasing, Rodriguez called out. Mach 1.8 and climbing. Kim's targeting system beeped frantically as it tried to track the departing aircraft. Lost lock. They're gone. Tessa watched the enemy jets disappear from her screens, heading back toward their own territory. Another successful hit-and-run attack. Another Allied convoy destroyed. Spooky 2-7, this is Groundhog Base, crackled through her headset. We're showing multiple explosions in your sector. Copy, Groundhog. Enemy aircraft struck convoy in Khalid Valley. For fast movers, already departed. Any engagement? Tessa hesitated. Negative engagement. Targets moving too fast for intercept. Understood. Continue patrol pattern. Barnes looked over at her. Same story as always. Not quite. Tessa keyed her intercom. Rodriguez, did you record their approach vector? Yes, ma'am. Full track from first detection to target area. Show me. Rodriguez's screen displayed the attack pattern as a series of bright lines. The enemy aircraft had approached from the northeast, dove into the valley, struck the convoy, then departed to the southwest. Interesting, Washington said, studying the display. They didn't go back the way they came. Standard evasion, Kim explained. Never used the same route twice. Maybe. Tessa traced the flight path with her finger. Or maybe they're following a pattern we haven't figured out yet. The AC-130 continued its orbit while the convoy burned below. Emergency vehicles were already racing toward the scene, their headlights cutting through the smoke. Groundhog Base, Spooky 27, Tessa transmitted. Request permission to extend patrol time. Spooky 27, what's your fuel status? Barnes checked his gauges. 4 hours remaining. Copy. You're authorized to remain on station until fuel minimum. Rodriguez looked up from his console. Colonel, what are you thinking? I'm thinking about patterns. These guys hit 3 convoys in the past week. Same valley, same tactics. But different approach routes each time, Washington pointed out. Different routes, but similar timing. All 3 attacks happened between 10:30 and 11:15 at night. Kim nodded slowly. When our regular patrol birds are returning to base for fuel. Exactly. They've been watching us as much as we've been watching them. Barnes adjusted their flight path to avoid the smoke rising from the valley floor. So what's the plan? Tessa had been forming an idea since the first enemy aircraft appeared on radar. Rodriguez, can your sensors detect aircraft outside our normal patrol area? How far outside? 60, maybe 70 miles. Sure, if they're airborne and not using stealth mode. Why? Because I think our friends down there weren't operating alone. Washington pulled up a regional map on his display. You mean there might be more attacks planned? Think about it. Hit one convoy, draw our attention. While we're busy dealing with the damage, hit another target somewhere else. Rodriguez began expanding his sensor coverage. I can monitor the adjacent valleys and the supply routes to the east. Do it. For 20 minutes, they orbited in silence. The burning convoy below had been reduced to scattered fires and emergency lights. Rescue vehicles worked to evacuate the wounded. Then Rodriguez straightened at his station. Got something. Multiple contacts, bearing 045, range 52 miles. How many? 3 aircraft, flying in formation. Same speed profile as the first group. Tessa felt her heart rate increase. Heading? Southwest toward the Zara supply depot. Washington's fingers flew over his keyboard. Zara Depot is our largest fuel and ammunition storage facility in the sector. If they hit that, the whole forward operating base goes dark, Kim finished. Tessa keyed her radio. Groundhog Base, Spooky 27. We have multiple fast movers approaching Zara Depot. Request immediate alert of base defenses. Spooky 27, stand by. While they waited for a response, Rodriguez tracked the approaching aircraft. Time to target, 8 minutes. Can we intercept? Barnes asked. Tessa did the math in her head. Not at our current position. By the time we reach Zara, they'll be long gone. Spooky 27, this is Groundhog Base. Zara Depot is on full alert, but their air defenses are limited. Can you provide support? Tessa looked at her crew. Kim was already running calculations on his fire control computer. Washington had plotted an intercept course. Rodriguez maintained his sensor lock on the approaching targets. Groundhog, we're moving to intercept. But we need those aircraft to slow down if we're going to engage them. How do we make that happen? Barnes asked. Tessa smiled grimly. The same way you make a wolf come to you. You give it something it wants to hunt. She banked the AC-130 toward Zara Depot, pushing the throttles forward. The old aircraft couldn't match the speed of modern fighters, but it didn't need to. Rodriguez, I want continuous tracking on those contacts. Kim, prepare all weapon systems. Washington, plot us a course that puts us between those aircraft and their escape route. Yes, ma'am. And gentlemen, Tessa added, tonight we stop being the night patrol. Tonight we become the hunters. The AC-130 turned toward its new heading, its crew preparing for the kind of engagement they'd trained for but never experienced. Behind them, the Khalid Valley continued to burn. Ahead of them, 3 enemy aircraft streaked through the darkness toward their next target, unaware that for the first time in weeks, someone was waiting for them. The AC-130 climbed through 12,000 feet, its engines straining against the thin air. Tessa pushed the throttles as far forward as they would go, coaxing every knot of speed from the old aircraft. Time to intercept, she called back to Washington. 6 minutes if we maintain current heading and speed. Enemy aircraft status? Rodriguez hunched over his displays, tracking the 3 bright dots moving across his screen. Still on course for Zara Depot. Speed holding steady at Mach 1.2. Tessa did the calculations in her head. The enemy jets would reach the fuel depot 2 minutes before the AC-130 could get into position. 2 minutes to strike their target and accelerate away. Barnes, take us up to 16,000. 16? That's above our normal operating altitude. Trust me. The AC-130 continued its climb. Through the cockpit windows, the desert spread out below them like a dark ocean. In the distance, Tessa could see the lights of Zara Depot, a small cluster of buildings and fuel tanks surrounded by protective barriers. Colonel, Kim called from his gunnery station, at this altitude and range, my accuracy is going to suffer. How much? Maybe 20% degradation on the precision weapons. The big gun should be fine. Noted. Tessa leveled off at 16,000 feet. Rodriguez, where are our targets now? 40 miles out and closing. They're starting their descent. Here we go, Washington muttered. Tessa keyed her radio. Zara Base, this is Spooky 27. 3 enemy aircraft inbound your location. Time to impact, for minutes. Copy, Spooky 27. Our defenses are active, but we could use the help. Understood. We're positioning for intercept. Barnes glanced over at her. How exactly are we going to intercept aircraft that are twice as fast as we are? Same way a spider catches a fly. You don't chase it. You wait where it has to go. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the intercom. Targets are slowing. Speed down to 600 knots. They're setting up their attack run, Washington observed. Tessa studied the tactical display. The enemy aircraft were descending toward the depot, their speed dropping as they prepared for a precision strike. But to hit their targets accurately, they would have to slow down even more. Kim, what's your maximum effective range? For the 105 howitzer, about 12 miles. 25mm cannon, maybe 6 miles. Rodriguez, can you guide Kim's fire at maximum range? Yes, ma'am. The targeting system can compensate for distance and aircraft movement. Tessa banked the AC-130 into a wide orbit pattern above the depot. Here's what we're going to do. Those aircraft have to slow down to attack ground targets. When they do, we'll have maybe 30 seconds before they accelerate and disappear. 30 seconds, Kim repeated. That's not much time. It's enough if we're ready. Tessa's voice stayed calm over the intercom. Rodriguez, the moment those targets drop below 400 knots, I want target designation. Kim, you engage immediately with the cannon. Don't wait for a perfect solution. Copy that. What about the howitzer? Washington asked. Save it for something we can't miss. The enemy aircraft continued their approach. On Rodriguez's screen, they appeared as 3 white dots descending toward the depot's heat signature. 2 minutes to target, Rodriguez announced. Tessa could see the fuel depot clearly now, its storage tanks and loading facilities spread across several acres. Vehicle headlights moved between the buildings as personnel took cover. Spooky 27, this is Zara Base. We're tracking the inbound aircraft on our radar. They're coming in from the northeast. Copy, Zara. Take cover and keep your heads down. Barnes checked his instruments. Colonel, what if this doesn't work? Then we write another after-action report about enemy aircraft that got away. That's not what I mean. Tessa looked over at her co-pilot. Barnes had been flying with her for 8 months. Good pilot, steady hands, but he'd never been in a real fight. Barnes, those jets down there have been hitting our people for weeks. Tonight that stops. But what if we miss? What if we hit friendly forces by mistake? Then we live with it. But if we don't try, more convoys burn tomorrow night. Rodriguez's voice cut through their conversation. 1 minute to target. Enemy aircraft descending through 8,000 feet. Kim's hands moved over his fire control panel. All weapon systems armed and ready. Steady, Tessa said. Let them commit to their attack. The 3 enemy jets dropped to 5,000 feet, then 3,000. Their speed continued to decrease as they lined up on the fuel depot. Speed down to 450 knots, Rodriguez reported. Not yet. 400 knots. Wait for it. 350 knots. They're starting their attack run. Tessa could see muzzle flashes from the depot's defensive positions. Tracers streaked up toward the attacking aircraft like deadly fireworks. 300 knots, Rodriguez called out. They're in the envelope. Kim, engage. The AC-130 shuddered as the 25mm cannon opened fire. A stream of shells arced down toward the valley, each round glowing like a falling star. On target, Rodriguez shouted. I see hits on the lead aircraft. Through her night vision, Tessa watched one of the enemy jets trail sparks as it pulled out of its attack dive. The other 2 aircraft completed their runs, and explosions bloomed across the depot. Targets accelerating, Rodriguez warned. Speed increasing rapidly. The damaged enemy jet struggled to keep up with its wingmen, black smoke streaming from its engine. But all 3 aircraft were climbing again, their afterburners turning night into day. Kim fired another burst, but the targets were already moving too fast. Within seconds, they disappeared from his targeting system. Zara Base, Spooky 27. Enemy aircraft departing your area. What's your damage assessment? Spooky 27, we took hits on 2 fuel tanks, but the fires are contained. Thanks for the assist. Tessa felt a mix of satisfaction and frustration. They'd hit 1 enemy aircraft, but the other 2 had escaped. Still, it was more success than any Allied aircraft had achieved in weeks. Rodriguez, did you track their departure route? Yes, ma'am. Heading southwest, same as the first group. Interesting pattern. Washington looked up from his navigation display. Colonel, I'm seeing something on the intelligence reports. What is it? Both groups of enemy aircraft departed to the southwest. That's not the direction of their home base. Barnes frowned. Then where are they going? Tessa studied the tactical display, her mind working through the possibilities. 2 successful attacks, both followed by departures to the southwest. Not toward home, but toward something else. Rodriguez, expand your sensor coverage. I want to know what's out there. As the AC-130 began another orbit, Tessa realized they weren't just dealing with random hit-and-run attacks. There was a larger plan at work, and they'd only seen the beginning of it. The hunt was far from over. Rodriguez leaned forward at his sensor station, adjusting the gain on his thermal imaging system. Colonel, I'm picking up heat signatures 60 miles southwest of our position. Aircraft? Negative. Ground-based. Multiple large heat sources in a cluster. Tessa banked the AC-130 toward the new contacts. Could be vehicles. Too big for trucks, Rodriguez said, fine-tuning his display. These signatures are massive. Maybe fuel tankers or mobile command posts. Washington pulled up a map on his navigation screen. That area should be empty desert. Nothing on our intelligence charts. Which makes it perfect for a forward staging area, Tessa realized. Barnes, take us down to 12,000 feet. I want a closer look. The AC-130 descended through the thin air, its engines adjusting to the denser atmosphere. Through the cockpit windows, Tessa could see nothing but darkness stretching to the horizon. Range to targets, 40 miles, Rodriguez reported. I'm getting better resolution now. Definitely vehicles, but they're arranged in a defensive perimeter. Kim looked up from his weapons panel. Sounds like a temporary base. Or a trap, Barnes muttered. Tessa ignored her co-pilot's pessimism. Rodriguez, any sign of aircraft on the ground? Checking now. Rodriguez switched between thermal and radar modes. Negative on aircraft, but I'm seeing fuel trucks, communications vehicles, maybe some air defense systems. How many personnel? Hard to tell. The vehicles are masking individual heat signatures, but I'd estimate at least 50 people down there. Washington studied his tactical display. Colonel, if this is a forward operating base, those enemy jets we've been chasing might be refueling here instead of flying all the way home. That would explain the attack patterns, Tessa said. Hit a target, fly to the staging area for fuel and weapons, then hit another target. Like a gas station for raiders, Kim added. The AC-130 continued its approach. At 30 miles, Rodriguez's sensors began picking up more details. I'm seeing communications antennas, radar dishes, and what looks like a mobile control tower, he reported. This is definitely a command post. Any air defenses? Tessa asked. 2 mobile SAM launchers that I can identify. Probably more that I can't see. Barnes checked his altitude. Colonel, we're getting into their engagement envelope. I know. Tessa maintained course. Kim, what's your assessment? If we can get a clean shot at those fuel trucks, we can shut down their whole operation. But those SAM sites worry me. Range? 25 miles and closing. Rodriguez suddenly straightened at his console. Multiple contacts taking off from the staging area. 3, no, for aircraft, climbing fast. They know we're here, Washington said. Tessa felt her pulse quicken. Speed and heading? Mach 1.5 and accelerating. Bearing directly for us. Kim's hands flew over his fire control panel. Time to intercept? 90 seconds. Options? Tessa asked her crew. We can run, Barnes suggested. They're faster, but we've got a head start. Or we fight, Kim countered. But 4 against 1 aren't good odds. We're not running, Tessa decided. Rodriguez, maintain target lock on those fuel trucks. Kim, prepare to engage the aircraft when they get in range. Colonel, Barnes protested, those jets will tear us apart. Not if we make them fight on our terms. Tessa pushed the AC-130 into a diving turn toward the enemy base. The aircraft shuddered as she increased speed, pushing the old bird harder than it was designed to go. What are you doing? Barnes shouted. Making them choose between us and their base. The enemy fighters climbed toward them like ascending rockets, their afterburners visible even at 20 miles. But Tessa's maneuver had put the AC-130 directly above their staging area. Kim, engage the fuel trucks. Now. The 105mm howitzer roared, sending a high-explosive shell arcing down toward the enemy base. Seconds later, a massive fireball erupted among the clustered vehicles. Direct hit, Rodriguez called out. Secondary explosions from the fuel storage. Enemy fighters still closing, Washington warned. 15 miles and accelerating. Kim fired again, targeting the communications vehicles. Another explosion lit up the desert floor. They're breaking formation, Rodriguez reported. 2 aircraft continuing toward us, 2 breaking off to defend their base. Good. Divide and conquer. The first 2 enemy jets screamed past the AC-130 at 12 miles, their missiles missing in the darkness. But they were moving too fast to turn and engage again quickly. They overshot, Kim observed. They'll be back, Tessa said. Rodriguez, where are the other 2? Circling their base, trying to find us on radar. Tessa banked the AC-130 into a tight orbit, using the smoke and flames from the burning base to mask their heat signature. Below them, fuel trucks continued to explode in chain reactions. "The first two are coming around again," Rodriguez warned. "But they're slowing down to get a better shot." "Perfect." Tessa keyed her intercom. "Kim, the moment they drop below 600 knots, light them up." The enemy fighters approached more cautiously this time, their speed dropping as they tried to target the circling AC-130. At 8 miles, Kim opened fire with the 25mm cannon. Tracers streaked through the darkness, and one enemy jet rolled hard to avoid the gunfire. But the evasive maneuver cost the pilot his speed and altitude. "I've got tone," Kim announced. Firing. The howitzer boomed again, but this time the shell was aimed at the maneuvering fighter. The explosion caught the enemy jet as it tried to climb, and Tessa saw debris spinning away into the darkness. "Splash 1, Rodriguez confirmed. But his wingman is still out there." "Where?" "Lost contact. He might be using the terrain to mask his approach." Barnes scanned the darkness through his night vision. "This is insane. We're a cargo plane fighting supersonic fighters." "We're winning," Tessa pointed out. A new alarm sounded in the cockpit. The radar warning receiver had detected a missile lock. "SAM launch," Rodriguez shouted. Surface-to-air missile inbound from the base. Tessa threw the AC-130 into a hard turn, deploying chaff and flares. The surface-to-air missile streaked past them, its proximity fuse detonating harmlessly in their wake. "Another launch," Washington called out. 2 missiles this time. The AC-130 shook as Tessa pushed it through evasive maneuvers that would have impressed a fighter pilot. Chaff bloomed behind them like silver clouds, confusing the incoming missiles. "Clear," Rodriguez announced. Both missiles missed. But the celebration was short-lived. Kim's voice cut through the intercom with urgency. "Colonel, I'm tracking multiple aircraft taking off from sites across the region." This wasn't just a staging area. It was a signal. "What kind of signal?" "The kind that calls for backup. I count at least 12 fast movers heading our way from 3 different bases." Tessa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the altitude. They hadn't stumbled into a simple refueling station. They'd found the nerve center of a major operation. And now every enemy fighter in the theater was converging on their position. 12 aircraft? Barnes stared at Rodriguez's display. "Colonel, we need to get out of here. Now." Tessa studied the tactical screen. Bright dots converged on their position from 3 directions, moving at incredible speed. The closest formation would reach them in less than 4 minutes. "Rodriguez, what's our fuel status?" 2 hours remaining, but that won't matter if we're shot down in the next 10 minutes. "Kim, ammunition?" "Plenty of shells for the big gun. Cannon's got about 60% remaining." Washington looked up from his communications panel. "Colonel, I'm picking up radio chatter from multiple Allied bases. They're tracking the enemy aircraft too. Any friendly support coming our way?" "Negative. Nearest fighter squadron is 40 minutes out." Tessa did the math. 12 enemy jets would be on top of them in 4 minutes. Allied help was 40 minutes away. The numbers didn't look good. "Barnes, take us down to 8,000 feet. 8,000? That puts us right in their engagement envelope." "That's the idea." The AC-130 dove toward the burning enemy base, using the smoke and flames as cover. Below them, secondary explosions continued to light up the desert as fuel and ammunition stores detonated. "Colonel," Kim said, "what's the plan here?" "Same as always. Make them fight on our terms." Rodriguez tracked the incoming aircraft. First formation, 6 aircraft, bearing 020. Range 12 miles and closing fast. Second formation. 4 aircraft from the southeast, range 15 miles. And the third? 2 aircraft from due south, but they're hanging back. Probably command and control. Tessa nodded. The enemy was coordinating their attack, trying to overwhelm the lone AC-130 with superior numbers and speed. But coordination required communication, and communication could be disrupted. Washington, can you jam their radio frequencies? Already working on it. Washington's fingers flew over his electronic warfare panel. I'm broadcasting white noise across their primary channels. Good. Rodriguez, which formation will reach us first? The 6 aircraft from the northeast. 2 minutes out. Kim, prepare for multiple simultaneous engagements. Don't wait for perfect shots. The AC-130 leveled off just above the burning base, using the destruction below to mask its heat signature. Through the cockpit windows, Tessa could see the glow of approaching afterburners. Contact, Rodriguez announced. Lead formation is slowing for attack approach. Here they come. 6 enemy fighters dove toward the AC-130 from different angles, their formation spreading wide to prevent a single defensive maneuver from spoiling all their shots. Multiple missile launches, Washington warned. I count 4, no, 6 missiles inbound. Tessa threw the AC-130 into a spiraling descent, chaff and flares streaming from the aircraft like metallic confetti. The old cargo plane groaned under the stress, but it held together. 3 missiles missed, Rodriguez called out. 3 still tracking. Kim opened fire with everything he had. The 25mm cannon traced lines of fire across the sky while the 105mm howitzer boomed repeatedly. One enemy fighter flew directly into his stream of cannon fire and disintegrated in a ball of flames. Splash 1, Kim reported. A missile detonated 50 feet from the AC-130's starboard wing, sending shrapnel through the cargo compartment. Warning lights flashed on Tessa's instrument panel. We're hit, Barnes shouted. Engine number 3 is running rough. Can we maintain flight? For now. 2 more enemy fighters screamed past them, their shots going wide in the smoke and chaos. But they were already turning for another attack run. Second formation approaching, Rodriguez warned. For aircraft, range 8 miles. Washington, are you having any luck with the jamming? Some. Their coordination is breaking down, but they're still coming. Kim engaged the approaching fighters with the howitzer, sending explosive shells into their flight path. One pilot swerved to avoid the barrage and collided with his wingman. Both aircraft went down in twin fireballs. That's 3 down, Kim announced with satisfaction. But the remaining enemy fighters were learning. Instead of attacking in formation, they began individual attack runs from different directions, making it impossible for Kim to engage them all simultaneously. They're getting smarter, Barnes observed. So are we. Tessa keyed her radio. All Allied stations, this is Spooky 27. We are engaged with multiple enemy aircraft over grid reference 77 Alpha. Request immediate support. Spooky 27, this is Groundhog Base. Cavalry is en route, but you need to hold on for 30 more minutes. Copy. 30 minutes. Tessa looked at her fuel gauges and damaged engine indicators. They might not have 30 minutes. Another enemy fighter dove toward them from high altitude, its pilot trying to use speed and surprise. But Rodriguez was tracking everything within 50 miles. High-speed contact, 12 o'clock high, diving fast. Kim elevated his guns and fired a long burst as the enemy jet flashed overhead. Sparks flew from the fighter's fuselage, but it continued its attack run. The enemy pilot fired his cannon, and bullet holes stitched across the AC-130's cargo door. Rodriguez dove away from his console as sparks flew from his electronics. Rodriguez, you hit? Negative, but I lost half my sensors. Can you still track targets? The thermal imaging is down, but radar is still good. 3 enemy fighters circled the AC-130 like wolves around a wounded elk, taking turns to attack from different angles. Each pass brought them closer to a killing shot. Fuel leak in engine number 2, Barnes reported. We're losing power. Tessa felt the aircraft becoming sluggish in her hands. The AC-130 was tough, but it wasn't invincible. Then Washington looked up from his communication panel with a grin. "Colonel, I'm getting radio traffic from friendly aircraft. Multiple F-35s inbound our position." "How long?" "5 minutes." Another enemy fighter made its attack run, but this time Kim was ready. The howitzer's high-explosive shell caught the jet just as it pulled out of its dive, turning the aircraft into falling debris. "4 down," Kim announced. 8 to go, Barnes added grimly. But the tide was turning. The remaining enemy fighters were running low on fuel and ammunition, and their attacks were becoming more desperate. When the first F-35 Lightning appeared on Rodriguez's scope, the enemy formation began to break apart. "Allied fighters entering the battle area," Rodriguez reported. "For F-35s, engaging enemy aircraft." Through her night vision, Tessa could see the distinctive blue flames of F-35 afterburners as the Lightning fighters swept into the battle. Within minutes, the sky was filled with missile trails and cannon fire. "Spooky 2-7, this is Lightning Lead. We've got your back. How many enemy aircraft are you tracking?" "Lightning Lead, we count 8 remaining hostiles. They've been using hit-and-run tactics." "Copy. We'll pin them down while you finish off that base." The F-35s engaged the enemy fighters in high-speed combat, forcing them away from the damaged AC-130. Kim took advantage of the distraction to target the remaining structures at the enemy base. The 105mm howitzer roared repeatedly, destroying communications equipment, fuel storage, and what looked like a command bunker. Each explosion sent flames hundreds of feet into the air. "Base is neutralized," Kim reported. "Nothing left but craters and scrap metal." "Lightning Lead, Spooky 2-7. Enemy base is destroyed. What's your status on the fighters?" "Spooky 2-7, we've splashed 4 more bandits. The remaining aircraft are departing the area at high speed." Tessa felt a wave of relief wash over her. They'd survived. Not only survived, but won. "All stations, this is Spooky 2-7. Enemy base destroyed, hostile aircraft neutralized or departed. Mission complete." Barnes looked over at her with amazement. "I can't believe we pulled that off." "Never doubted it for a second," Washington lied with a straight face. Kim was already running post-battle checks on his weapons systems. "Colonel, we expended about 80% of our ammunition. That was one hell of a fight." Rodriguez worked to restore his damaged sensors. "I'm still getting some thermal imaging, but it'll take the maintenance crew to fix everything properly." The AC-130 limped home through the dawn sky, its damaged engines running rough but steady. Below them, the enemy base continued to burn, sending a pillar of black smoke high into the morning air. As they approached their home base, Tessa could see vehicles and personnel gathered on the tarmac. Word of their engagement had obviously spread. "Spooky 2-7, this is Tower. You're cleared for priority landing. Emergency vehicles are standing by." "Tower, Spooky 2-7. We're beat up but flyable. Thanks for the welcome committee." The AC-130 touched down with its characteristic heavy thump, and Tessa taxied toward the maintenance hangar. Through the cockpit windows, she could see dozens of people waiting for them, including some familiar faces from the fighter squadrons. Lieutenant Henderson was among them, the young pilot who'd called her aircraft obsolete just 12 hours earlier. His expression had changed considerably. After shutdown, Tessa and her crew climbed out of the aircraft to find themselves surrounded by ground personnel, maintenance crews, and pilots from other squadrons. The AC-130 looked like it had flown through a storm of shrapnel, but it had brought them home. "Colonel Rhodes," Henderson approached her, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine respect. "I heard about what you did out there. Taking on 12 enemy fighters in a gunship, that's incredible." "Just doing our job, Lieutenant." "Ma'am, I owe you an apology. I said some things about your aircraft that I didn't mean." Tessa looked at the young pilot's earnest face. "Henderson, what did you learn tonight? That speed isn't everything? That's part of it. But the real lesson is that every aircraft has its place. Your F-35 can do things my AC-130 never could. But sometimes, you need an aircraft that can stay in the fight long enough to finish it. Henderson nodded. Yes, ma'am. I understand. As the sun rose over the base, Tessa walked around her battered aircraft one more time. The AC-130 would fly again after repairs, and so would she. But tonight had proved something important. In the age of supersonic fighters and stealth technology, there was still a place for patience, experience, and an aircraft tough enough to take a beating and keep fighting. The night belonged to the hunters, and she was the best hunter in the sky. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories. Your support helps us bring you these tales of American heroes who prove that experience and determination can overcome any odds.